largely the big story continues to be the power of women, the power of non-white women, and their ascendance in our democratic process, and it's all good. We talked about the specific race in Vermont, where we had our first transgender nominee for governor of Vermont. We talked about the two Muslim women who are more than likely heading to Congress, all three of whom very progressive. In Minnesota, and this is quite interesting, the assumed front runner for much of the campaign was Attorney General Lori Swanson. There was a couple of pieces in The Intercept over the past couple of weeks which exposed the fact that she was had state workers working on her campaign. I mean, there was a lot of problems going on in that office, and those reports ended up, I think, contributing to her defeat. You had Tim Walz win. He's not necessarily, I think, as reliable of a progressive as you and I might want, but keeping that governorship in the hands of the Democrats is an important thing. Certainly in the Minnesota State House is one of those places where, we're going to need Democrats for the redistricting that's coming in 2020. So that's a big race. Also, Ellison, and I want to ask you about this. Now, Keith Ellison, the state attorney generals around the country are going to be very important, I think, over the next 2 to 4 years because of Donald Trump and his legal troubles, but also because of the Republican assault on our government. And it's going to be these state AGs who band together and sue the EPA to do its job. They band together to get the FDA to do its job. They're going to band together, I think, on a lot of major pieces of reform that are necessary. Ellison won big last night, but there's a bit of a cloud hanging over his head. Accusations of him being abusive in a relationship by an ex-girlfriend. What's your take on that, Digby?
Well, I don't know what to make of it. I suspect that this, like so many others, will have to play itself out. We'll see what happens. It's a big problem for him, though. I do think it is. Any time you're accused of that, and there is some evidence that maybe someone previous to this girlfriend had similar complaints, he's vulnerable because of this. It's absolutely the case that this is a cloud over his head, and has been a big rising star in the Democratic Party on the progressive side, and I think everyone thought that he had a big future, and this could, if it turns out to be true, it will derail his career, and I don't know.
Certainly, if it turns out to be true, and there's enough evidence, if it turns out to be true, and by that, that there's like some substantial evidence, it should end his carear. Sadly,
that's just the way these things work, and it's logical that they would. I mean, he's being accused of domestic violence. It's that's serious. That's not just some kind of it's beyond some kind of verbal abuse. And I don't know whether or not it's true. There's a lot of sort of questions about the accusations, and there was supposed to be a videotape which has now gone missing, and various things like that, which do raise questions about the accusations. So we'll have to see. We've seen all this kind of stuff being played out over the past year and a half with the Me Too movement, and it can go in any number of directions. So I'm going to keep an open mind here and see what happens. But it is true what you say in general about this particular job, the AG, and also governors in general, and the down-ticket races in the states, because this is where the action is going to be, particularly for what's going to happen in 2020, as far as voting rights, and then beyond that, as far as the census and redistricting. I mean, this is probably the central threat after maybe foreign sabotage of elections to our democracy. And this is where the Republicans are 100% dependent now on rigging, basically, the redistricting and voting rights in order to maintain power. They just simply don't have the numbers. Their only way to do it is to suppress the vote, stop people from voting, end immigration. You know, all the rest of their agenda on this is solely because of their need to reduce the actual pool of voters that are out there so that they can have a chance to compete with the agenda that they're forced to run on because of their racist older white base. So this is a big, big, big challenge, and it will be very, very disappointing if it turns out that Keith Ellison is a domestic, is a domestic abuser and was knocked out of politics because he was very, very effective, I think, in a lot of ways, and would have been an excellent person. On the other hand, there are plenty of effective people out there.
Right.
We will survive, and someone else can do that job. Nobody is irreplaceable, and if it turns out that he is a domestic abuser, he's got to go.
He's got to go.
There's nothing. That's just the way it is, and I'm not even going to try and fudge that. It would be disappointing, but it would be just the way it goes.
Yeah, it would have to happen. Now, I should also say, Iron Stash, the Randy Bryce won his race. I'll talk to Howie Klein, your buddy, a little bit later in this program about that. We just have 30 seconds left. The only other thing that I would say is interesting in Milwaukee. There was the Democratic nominee for sheriff has vowed to stop the policies that have been going on in Milwaukee and being so cooperative with ICE. And that is encouraging to see someone. Hopefully that will be it'll be interesting to see the implications of that race, at least in terms of taking a temperature as to where Democrats should be landing in the future.